What happens when the weakest wolf in the pack becomes the one thing that could save them all? For Alara Moon, life had always been written in whispers and lowered eyes. As an Omega in the Crescent Falls pack, she existed in the margins, her lavender and morning dew scent so faint that most wolves forgot she was there. She worked in the pack kitchens, kept her head down, and never dreamed of anything more than survival. But when Alpha Rowan Blackthorn rejected her as his fated mate in front of the entire pack during the winter ceremony, severing their bond with a declaration that echoed through the frozen night, everything changed. And what happens next, no one was prepared for. The Great Hall of Crescent Falls had never looked more beautiful or more cruel. Ice crystals hung from the vaulted ceiling, catching the light of 100 torches. The winter ceremony was the pack's most sacred gathering, when the moon goddess's blessings were strongest, when mate bonds were announced and celebrated. Alara had felt it in her bones for weeks, that tonight would change everything. She'd felt the pull toward Rowan Blackthorn since her 18th birthday 3 months ago. The alpha sun, powerful and golden, with a scent of forest and embers that made her wolf whimper with recognition. The bond had hummed between them, invisible to everyone else, a secret she'd carried like a fragile flame. She hadn't expected him to announce it, hadn't dared hope. But she also hadn't expected this. I, Rowan Blackthorn, alpha heir of Crescent Falls, reject Alara Moon as my mate and Luna. His voice rang out clear and cold, amplified by the stone walls. Before the moon goddess and this pack, I sever our bond. The pain hit her like a physical blow. The bond didn't just break, it shattered, each fragment tearing through her chest like broken glass. Alara gasped, her knees buckling. Around her, the pack erupted in whispers. Some gasped. Others laughed. An Omega, someone sneered. The moon goddess paired our alpha with an Omega? Rowan's face remained impassive, carved from ice. His scent, forest, embers, ozone, steel, had gone cold and distant. The goddess makes mistakes, he said. I will not bind myself to weakness. My mate will be strong, worthy of standing beside an alpha. Not. His gray eyes finally found hers, and there was nothing in them. No regret, no mercy. Not this. Alara couldn't breathe. Her wolf, usually so quiet inside her, was howling in agony. The severed bond felt like losing a limb, like having her soul carved out. She pressed a hand to her chest, feeling the phantom wound there, the place where golden threads had connected her to him. Remove her, Rowan commanded. 2 guards stepped forward. Their hands on her arms were neither gentle nor rough, just impersonal, as if she were a piece of furniture to be relocated. They hauled her to her feet, as tears streamed down her face. Please, she whispered, hating herself for begging. Please, You are dismissed from the ceremony, Beta Marcus announced, his voice formal. Return to your quarters. But Alara knew. She could see it in their eyes, smell it in the air, the sharp scent of judgment and disgust. This wasn't just rejection. This was exile. They dragged her through the crowd. Familiar faces turned away. People she'd worked beside for years suddenly found the floor fascinating. Her mother stood near the back, her father beside her, and Alara's heart lurched with desperate hope. Mother, she called out. Please. Her mother's face crumpled, but her father's hand on her arm kept her still. He wouldn't meet Alara's eyes. The guards pulled her through the great doors and into the bitter winter night. Snow fell in thick curtains, the kind that erased the world in white. The temperature had dropped viciously, a blizzard was coming, the kind that killed. You can't, Alara gasped as they dragged her toward the pack's border. You can't send me out in this. I'll die. Should have thought of that before you embarrassed the alpha, one guard muttered. At the border, marked by ancient stones, they released her. She stumbled forward into snow up to her knees. Don't come back, the other guard said. Not cruel, just tired. Alpha's orders. You're no longer pack. The words hit harder than the cold. No longer pack. She was Omega, the lowest rank, but at least she'd belonged somewhere. Now she was nothing. No pack meant no protection, no territory, no rights. Rogue wolves didn't last long. She turned back, desperate. My parents. Can I at least? They were given a choice. The first guard said quietly, "Stand with you, or stand with the pack." The silence that followed told her everything. The guards retreated, their forms disappearing into the swirling snow. Alara stood there, her thin ceremony dress already soaked through, her bare feet going numb. The bond's absence was a constant scream in her chest. Her wolf had gone eerily quiet, as if the severing had damaged something fundamental. She had two choices: stay here and freeze to death within the hour, or move and maybe last until dawn. Alara chose to move. The forest beyond Crescent Falls territory was ancient and wild, the trees so thick that even the storm's fury was muted beneath their boughs. Alara stumbled forward, her arms wrapped around herself, teeth chattering so hard she thought they might shatter. Her scent, usually lavender and morning dew, had faded to almost nothing, hidden beneath the sharper smells of fear and exhaustion. She didn't know how long she walked. Time became meaningless in the whiteout conditions. Her feet left bloody prints in the snow, though she couldn't feel the cuts anymore. That was bad. She knew that was bad. When she saw the structure ahead, she thought she was hallucinating. But no, there, barely visible through the storm, was an old barn. Half collapsed, abandoned, but it had walls. A roof. Shelter. Alara fell through the doorway more than walked, her legs finally giving out. The interior was dark and smelled of old hay and rot, but it was marginally warmer than outside. She crawled to the farthest corner, burrowing into a pile of ancient straw, and curled into the smallest ball possible. This is it, she thought distantly. This is where I die. Her body was shutting down. She could feel it, the dangerous warmth creeping through her limbs, the exhaustion that felt like sinking into deep water. Hypothermia. She'd heard about it. How it made you feel warm at the end. How you just wanted to sleep. Alara's eyes drifted closed. She thought of her parents' faces. Turned away. Rowan's cold eyes. The pack's laughter. Maybe this was better. The last thing she remembered before darkness took her was the distant sound of howling, deep and resonant, like the world itself was singing. Warmth. That was the first thing Alara became aware of, warmth, surrounding her like a cocoon. She was still so cold, her core temperature dangerously low, but something was keeping her from slipping away entirely. The second thing was the breathing. Not her own, though her lungs were working, shallow and labored. This was other breathing, deep and rhythmic, surrounding her on all sides. Alara's eyes fluttered open. Wolves. She froze, every instinct screaming, though her body was too weak to run. They surrounded her completely, massive bodies pressed close, sharing their heat. In the dim light filtering through the barn's gaps, she could make out their forms. 1, 2, 3, 4. She kept counting, her sluggish mind struggling to process. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 wolves, each one enormous, far larger than any wolf she'd ever seen. Their fur ranged from midnight black to storm gray to silver white. They weren't touching her, exactly, but they'd arranged themselves in a tight circle, their body heat creating a pocket of survivable warmth. They'd saved her life. Her wolf, silent since the rejection, suddenly stirred. Not with fear, with recognition. The largest wolf, directly in front of her, had its eyes open. They were an impossible color, silver with flecks of gold, ancient and knowing. As she met its gaze, the wolf's form began to shimmer. Alara had seen shifts before. They were quick, brutal things, bones snapping, skin tearing, the violence of transformation. This was different. This wolf's shift was fluid, elegant, as if the universe simply decided he should be man instead of beast. When the transformation completed, a man knelt where the wolf had been. He was older than Rowan by perhaps a decade, his face marked by a scar that ran from his left temple to his jaw. His hair was dark with silver threaded through it, his shoulders broad enough to block out the world. But it was his scent that made Alara's breath catch: aged oak, winter snow, pine, and the electric charge of an approaching storm. Power radiated from him like heat from a forge. "You're awake," he said, his voice deep and rough. "Good. We were worried." "Who?" Alara's voice cracked. "Who are you?" The man's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "My name is Cale Thornridge. And these," he gestured to the wolves around them, "are my brothers. The Shadow Guard." Shadow Guard. The term meant nothing to her, but it felt important, weighted with history. "We've been searching for you," Cale said simply. "For a very long time." Alara's sluggish mind couldn't make sense of that. That's impossible. "You don't know me. No one knows me." "We know what you are." Cale's silver-gold eyes held hers. "The question is, do you?" Before she could answer, another wolf shifted. This one became a younger man, perhaps in his early 20s, with wild auburn hair and bright green eyes. "The prophecy," he said eagerly. "Should we tell her about the prophecy?" "Finn," Cale said, a warning in his tone. "What prophecy?" Alara whispered. Cale was quiet for a long moment, studying her with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable but somehow wasn't. Finally, he spoke, and his words had the cadence of something ancient, something repeated in whispers across generations. "When winter's bite claims the forsaken heart, when bonds are broken and souls torn apart, the matriarch will rise from snow and pain. Silver and storm, she will come to reign. She will be bound but not broken, hidden but not lost. And when the old blood wakes within her bones, the moon's true daughter will claim her throne." The words echoed in the barn, seeming to resonate with something deep in Alara's chest. Her wolf, silent for so long, suddenly surged forward with a force that stole her breath. "I don't understand," she gasped. "You were rejected tonight," Cale said. It wasn't a question. By an alpha who didn't recognize what stood before him. "How do you?" "We felt it. The breaking of the binding." Cale leaned forward, and his scent, oak, snow, pine, storm, washed over her. "Alara Moon, you are not what they told you. You were never an Omega." The barn seemed to tilt. "That's not. I've been tested. Ranked. I'm Omega. I've always been Omega." "No." This from another wolf who'd shifted, a woman with sharp features and hair like spun copper. "You were made to appear Omega. There's a difference." "Senna's right," Cale said. "Someone bound your true nature when you were very young. Suppressed your wolf, dampened your scent, locked away your power. It would have taken powerful magic and..." He paused. "And love. The binding could only be placed by those whose blood you share." The implication hit her like a physical blow. "My parents. Most likely. But why would they?" "Fear," Senna said softly. "People do terrible things when they're afraid." Alara's mind was reeling. None of this made sense. Except it did. Hadn't she always felt something missing, like a piece of herself was locked behind glass? Hadn't her wolf always seemed distant, muffled? The rejection, Cale continued, was violent enough, traumatic enough, to crack the binding. And being cast out, left to die, that shattered it completely. As if in response to his words, something deep inside Alara shifted. Her wolf, no longer a quiet whisper, rose up with the force of a tidal wave. "Hello, sister," a voice said in her mind, her wolf's voice, clear for the first time in her life. "I've been waiting so long to speak to you." Alara gasped, pressing a hand to her chest. I can't hear her. I can't hear my wolf." Cale's expression softened. "That's just the beginning." The pain started small, a tingling in her fingertips, a warmth in her core. Then it built, spreading through her like wildfire. But it wasn't the agony of the rejected bond. This was different. This was power, surging through pathways that had been blocked her entire life. "It's happening," Finn said, awed. "The awakening." "Give her space," Cale ordered, and the wolves who were still in animal form backed up, widening the circle. Alara tried to speak, to ask what was happening, but the words died in her throat. Energy crackled along her skin, making the air around her shimmer. Her wolf was no longer just speaking, she was rising, demanding to be free, demanding to be seen. The shift, when it came, was nothing like the painful transformations she'd witnessed. Her bones didn't snap, they flowed, restructuring with a fluid grace that felt like dancing. Her skin rippled as silver white fur emerged, each strand seeming to glow with its own inner light. She felt herself growing, her form expanding far beyond what should have been possible. The world sharpened around her, colors becoming richer, sounds clearer, scents exploding into complex layers of information. She could smell everything, the old wood of the barn, the snow outside, the individual scents of each guard member, and beneath it all, the earth itself, singing with ancient power. When the transformation completed, Elara stood on 4 legs and knew, instinctively, that everything had changed. She was massive, larger than any wolf she'd ever seen, larger than the guards who'd surrounded her. Her fur shimmered silver white with threads of moonlight woven through it. And her eyes, when she caught her reflection in a patch of ice, were no longer brown but violet, the color of lightning at dusk. Power thrummed through her, vast and terrible and beautiful. She threw her head back and howled. The sound that emerged was primal, resonant, a call that shook the barn's foundations and sent snow cascading from the trees outside. It was a declaration, an awakening, a promise. The Shadow Guard, all 10 of them, shifted in perfect synchronization and answered her call with their own howls, a symphony of recognition and allegiance. In that moment, Elara understood what Kale had been trying to tell her. She wasn't an Omega. She wasn't even an Alpha. She was something else entirely. Senna was the first to shift back to human form, her voice thick with emotion. "She is the matriarch," she whispered. "The prophecy is fulfilled." Elara shifted back, the transformation as easy as breathing now. She stood on shaking legs, naked and covered in sweat, but she'd never felt more powerful in her life. "What am I?" she asked, her voice stronger than it had ever been. Kale shifted back, and when he looked at her, there was something like reverence in his eyes. "You are what the werewolf world lost 500 years ago. You are the moon's chosen, the balance between all ranks, the one who commands not through force, but through divine right." He knelt, pressing his fist to his heart. "You are the matriarch reborn." One by one, the other guards shifted and knelt. 10 warriors, each powerful enough to level a pack on their own, bowing before her. "We are the Shadow Guard," Kale said, "bound by prophecy to find you, to protect you, to serve you. We have waited 20 generations for your return." Alara's legs finally gave out, and she sank to the barn floor. "This can't be real." "It's real." A different guard spoke now, a man with dark skin and warm brown eyes, his scent carrying notes of cinnamon and iron. "My name is Marcus. I was there the night you were born, Elara. I watched your parents bring you to the Moon Temple, watched them beg the priestess to hide what you were." "Why?" The word came out broken. "Why would they do that?" "Because the last matriarch was killed," Senna said gently. "Assassinated by those who feared her power. Your parents thought they were protecting you. They thought if no one knew, if you seemed powerless, you'd be safe. Instead, they crippled me," Elara said bitterly. "No," Kale said firmly. "They delayed you. There's a difference. The binding was always meant to break. It had to, when you came into your full power. They wanted you to have a childhood first, even a difficult one." Elara thought of her parents' faces in the Great Hall, how they'd turned away. "They let Rowan reject me. They let the pack throw me out to die." "The binding was breaking anyway," Marcus explained. "We felt the cracks starting 6 months ago. The rejection just accelerated the process." He paused. "Your parents likely felt it too. Knew what was coming. Sometimes the kindest thing parents can do is let go, even when it destroys them. That doesn't make it hurt less." "No," Kale agreed. "It doesn't." The barn fell quiet except for the howling wind outside. Alara's mind was a whirlwind of revelations, each one more impossible than the last. She was the matriarch. She had a divine right to what, exactly? What happens now? She asked. Kale's expression shifted, becoming businesslike. Now, we train you. You have power, yes, but you don't know how to use it. You can shift, but you don't know how to control it. You have guards, but you don't yet trust us. He stood, offering her his hand. We have a compound 3 days north. It's hidden, warded, safe. You'll learn everything you need to know there. And then you decide what kind of matriarch you want to be. Alara stared at his outstretched hand. She could say no, could walk away from all of this, try to disappear into the human lands, live a quiet life. But her wolf, fully awake now, snarled at the thought. We were meant for more, her wolf said. We were meant for this. Alara took Kale's hand. The compound was nothing like Alara had imagined. Built into the side of a mountain, it was half fortress, half sanctuary. Ancient stone walls were softened by gardens that somehow thrived despite the snow. Inside, the spaces were warm and lived in, clearly home to the Shadow Guard for years. We've prepared quarters for you, Kale said, leading her through corridors lit by both torches and modern electricity, a strange blend of old and new. You'll have privacy, but we're never far if you need us. Her room was simple but comfortable. A large bed, a fireplace that was already burning, and windows that looked out over a forest valley. Clean clothes had been laid out, practical pants and tunics, all in shades of silver and white. Rest, Kale said from the doorway. Tomorrow we begin. But sleep was elusive. Alara lay in the unfamiliar bed, her mind churning through everything that had happened. 24 hours ago, she'd been invisible. Now she was supposedly some kind of prophesied queen. Sister? Her wolf's voice, still so new and wondrous, called to her. Yes. Thank you for letting me out. Alara felt tears prick her eyes. I didn't know you were caged. Neither did I. Not really. But I am free now. We are free now. Over the next weeks, Alara's world expanded in ways she'd never imagined possible. The training started before dawn each day. Kale was a patient but demanding teacher, pushing her to shift over and over until she could do it in seconds. In battle, he explained, hesitation kills. Your shift must be instinct. But shifting was just the beginning. You're not just a powerful wolf, Senna said during one session. You're the matriarch. That means you have abilities other wolves don't. They discovered her gifts gradually, like unwrapping layers. First came the empathy. She could feel the emotions of other wolves, especially those who'd submitted to her authority. When Finn was upset about a failed exercise, she felt his frustration like a weight in her chest. When Marcus was proud of her progress, his satisfaction glowed warm and golden. It works both ways, Senna explained. You can sense them, but you can also project calm, confidence, even commands that bypass their rational mind and speak directly to their wolves. The healing came next, discovered by accident when one of the younger guards, a quiet woman named Lyra whose scent was honeysuckle and rain, injured her leg during a training exercise. Alara had touched the wound instinctively, and power had flowed from her fingers, knitting torn muscle and broken bone in seconds. The matriarch is the pack's heart, Kale had said, watching with wonder. Of course you can heal. But the most startling ability was the command. Not the alpha's dominance, which forced submission through power, but something else entirely. When Alara spoke with her wolf's voice behind the words, other wolves simply obeyed. Not from fear, but from a bone-deep recognition that she was right, that her word was law written in their very DNA. It's not mind control, Marcus assured her when she worried about it. You can't make them do something that violates their core nature. But when you give a command, their wolves recognize it as truth. Beyond the abilities, she learned about werewolf history. The Shadow Guard had maintained libraries that most packs thought lost. She read about the first matriarch, chosen by the moon goddess herself to unite the fractured wolf clans. About the line of matriarchs who followed, each bringing an era of peace and prosperity. About the war 500 years ago that had killed the last matriarch and plunged the werewolf world into the pack system, a pale shadow of what had come before. The packs fight constantly, Kale explained one evening as they sat by the compound's central fire. Territorial disputes, mate conflicts, succession battles. Without a matriarch to unite them, to remind them they're all children of the moon, they tear each other apart. And you think I can change that? Alara asked skeptically. I think you're the only one who can. She also learned about each of her guards. How they'd been chosen not by her, but by the prophecy itself. Each had been born on the same night, marked by the moon, and had known from childhood that they would serve the matriarch when she returned. Finn, with his wild energy and infectious optimism, was her scout, able to run faster and farther than any wolf alive. Senna, sharp and analytical, was her strategist, seeing patterns and possibilities others missed. Marcus, old enough to have known her parents, was her historian and advisor. Lyra, quiet but observant, was her shadow, capable of moving through the world almost unseen. There was Dante, huge and scarred, whose scent of smoke and copper marked him as her warrior, a fighter without equal. Nyx, with silver-streaked black fur, was her tracker, able to follow a scent trail days old across any terrain. River, whose fluid movements matched his name, was her diplomat, charming and persuasive. Ash, whose gray eyes missed nothing, was her sentinel, keeping watch while others slept. Thorn, scarred and silent, was her executioner, the one who would do what must be done without hesitation. And Kale, oldest and most powerful, was her first, the leader of the guard, the one she trusted most. They became more than guards. They became family. Alara laughed with Finn's jokes, strategized with Senna, listened to Marcus's stories. She trained with Dante, ran with Nyx, negotiated with River. She learned to read Ash's subtle signals, earned Thorn's rare smiles, and sat in comfortable silence with Lyra. And Kale. Kale was different. She noticed it in small ways first. How his scent, oak, snow, pine, storm, made her wolf purr with contentment. How his presence settled something restless inside her. How their eyes would meet across the training yard, and the world would narrow to just the two of them. He feels it too, Senna said one day, her tone carefully neutral. The pull. It's not a mate bond, Alara said quickly. I can tell the difference now. After Rowan. No, it's not a mate bond, Senna agreed. It's a chosen bond, which many believe is stronger, because it's not destiny, it's decision. Alara didn't know what to do with that information, so she focused on training. Days turned to weeks. She grew stronger, faster, more confident. Her wolf was no longer a separate entity, but a part of her, their thoughts flowing together seamlessly. She could shift at will, fight in either form, and command the respect of 10 warriors who could have leveled armies. She was no longer Alara, the Omega. She was becoming Alara, the matriarch. And then, 6 weeks into her training, the scouts returned with news. The Crescent Falls pack knows you're alive, Ash reported, his expression grim. And they're coming. The war party that appeared on the compound's border 3 days later was larger than Alara had expected. 25 wolves, all in fighting form, led by Rowan himself. His golden fur gleamed in the afternoon sun, his alpha aura radiating dominance. Alara stood atop the compound's outer wall, flanked by her shadow guard. Below, the enemy force-paced and snarled, their intentions clear. Alara Moon, Rowan's voice rang out. I know you're here. Show yourself. She could have sent her guards, could have let them handle this. But something in her, some new, powerful part that refused to hide, demanded she face this herself. Let me, she said quietly to Kale. His jaw tightened, but he nodded. We'll be right behind you. Alara descended from the wall, walking through the compound's gates with her head high. She wore simple fighting leathers, her silver-white hair unbound, violet eyes glowing with power. Her scent, no longer weak lavender, but something rich and complex, morning dew and wildflowers and moonlight, rolled out before her like a declaration. The war party shifted nervously at her approach. Some of them recognized her. She could tell. Could see the moment they processed that the weak Omega they'd laughed at had become this. Rowan shifted to human form, and several of his wolves followed. He stood tall and arrogant, but Alara could smell the uncertainty beneath his bravado, ozone and steel sharpened by fear. "So it's true," he said. "You survived. No thanks to you. I want to talk. Alone." "You don't give commands here, Rowan." Alara's voice carried power now, resonant and undeniable. "This is my territory. You're only alive because I allow it." A female wolf pushed forward, shifting to reveal a beautiful woman with dark hair and cruel eyes. Her scent, cinnamon, iron, blood, was sharp with aggression. "You think you're special now?" she sneered. "You're still just an Omega playing dress-up." "Cassandra," Rowan warned. But Cassandra was already shifting, her form flowing into a massive brown wolf. She lunged at Alara without warning, claws extended, teeth bared. Alara didn't even think. She simply moved. One moment she was human. The next, her massive silver-white wolf form met Cassandra mid-leap. The collision should have been equal. Two wolves, both experienced fighters. It wasn't even close. Alara caught Cassandra by the throat, using the she-wolf's own momentum to flip her onto her back. A single paw pressed down on Cassandra's chest, claws extended just enough to draw blood. Cassandra struggled for perhaps 3 seconds before going completely still, her wolf recognizing a superior force. Alara shifted back to human, keeping one hand pressed to Cassandra's furry chest. "Submit," she said quietly, "or die." The response was immediate. Cassandra's wolf rolled, exposing her throat and belly in complete surrender. "Good." Alara stepped back, allowing Cassandra to shift to human form. The woman stayed on the ground, head bowed, trembling. Behind them, the Shadow Guard had revealed their true forms. Alara had seen them in wolf form many times, but never like this. Never with their power fully unleashed. They grew, each one, until they stood twice the size of normal wolves. Their fur shimmered with supernatural light, Kale's silver gold, Senna's copper flame, Marcus's deep bronze. They weren't just wolves. They were dire wolves, ancient protectors, myths made flesh. The Crescent Falls war party backed up, whimpering. Even Rowan, alpha-born and proud, couldn't hide his terror. "You came to my territory," Alara said, her voice carrying to every wolf present. "Brought warriors to my border. Made demands of me." She walked toward Rowan slowly, deliberately. "Do you understand what you're facing, Rowan Blackthorn?" He tried to hold her gaze but failed, his eyes dropping in instinctive submission. "Please," he whispered. "Mercy." The word hung in the air. Mercy. He'd given her none when he rejected her. None when he ordered her thrown into the snow to die. But Alara was not Rowan. She was not cruel. She was justice. "Kneel," she commanded. Rowan's knees hit the ground before he could stop himself, his wolf responding to her authority whether he wanted it to or not. "I, Alara Moon, Matriarch Reborn, claim these lands and all packs within them as my sovereign territory," she declared, her voice resonating with power that made the earth tremble. "You will return to Crescent Falls and tell your pack what you saw here. Tell them the old laws are returned. Tell them the matriarch has risen." "What?" Rowan swallowed hard. "What are your terms?" "Terms?" Alara smiled, and it wasn't kind. "You sought to invade my land. You brought warriors to threaten my people. By ancient law, I could kill every wolf here and be within my rights." The war party trembled, several shifting to human form to beg. "But I am not the matriarch of death," Alara continued. "I am the matriarch of justice. So hear my judgment. Cassandra, who attacked me without provocation, is banished from Crescent Falls. She will join my guard as an Omega servant for 1 year. If she serves with honor, she may petition for redemption." Cassandra sobbed but nodded acceptance. "Rowan Blackthorn, you will return and strip yourself of the title Alpha Heir. You will serve your pack not as ruler but as guardian, protecting, not commanding. You will learn what true strength means. Rowan's face went white, but he bowed his head. Yes, matriarch. And you will tell my parents that I forgive them. Their binding was wrong, but it came from love. They may visit me here if they wish to seek atonement. I will hear them. I will not guarantee anything more. The rest of you, she addressed the war party, return home. Spread the word. The matriarch has returned. The old ways are restored. Any pack that wishes peace may petition for my protection. Any pack that seeks war. Her eyes flashed violet. We'll find it. Kale stepped forward, his massive dire wolf form towering over the cowering invaders. Go, he growled, before my matriarch changes her mind. They fled. All of them, even Rowan, shifted and ran as if death itself chased them. Only Cassandra remained, kneeling in the snow, broken and humbled. Alara looked down at her. Rise. You're one of us now. The woman stood on shaking legs, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, she whispered. Matriarch. Alara turned back to her guard. They had shifted to human form, all 10 of them standing in a semicircle, pride radiating from everyone. Kale approached slowly, his silver-gold eyes warm. That was well done. Was it? Alara felt shaky now that the adrenaline was fading. I could have been kinder. You could have been crueler, Senna countered. You found the balance. That's what makes you worthy. Marcus smiled. The old matriarchs would be proud. Finn whooped, breaking the solemn moment. Did you see their faces? Did you see Rowan practically piss himself? Despite everything, Alara laughed. The sound felt good, cleansing. Come, Kale said, offering his arm. Let's go home. Home. The words settled in her chest like a missing piece clicking into place. She took his arm, and together they walked back to the compound, the shadow guard falling into formation around them. Their matriarch, their queen, their destiny fulfilled. And above them, the moon shone bright and full, the goddess herself seeming to smile. 3 months after the confrontation at the border, Alara stood in the great hall of what had become her court, a neutral territory she claimed, a place where all packs could come to seek justice, to resolve disputes, to remember they were one people under the moon. Her parents had visited, as she'd known they would. The conversation had been painful, tearful, honest. They'd explained how they'd watched the previous matriarch die, how they'd been terrified when their daughter was born with violet eyes, the sign of the moon's chosen. The binding spell had been agony to place, paid for in blood and tears. We thought we were saving you, her mother had sobbed. We thought if no one knew, you could just be happy. Alara hadn't forgiven them immediately, but she'd started the process. They visited monthly now, helping to rebuild the relationship that the binding had damaged. Rowan had kept his word. He'd stepped down as heir and taken up the role of pack guardian. Reports said he'd become quieter, more thoughtful. He'd sent a formal letter of apology, not begging to return, just acknowledging the harm he'd caused. Alara had kept the letter but hadn't replied. Some wounds needed time. Cassandra, surprisingly, had become one of her most loyal servants. The humbling had broken something vicious in her and revealed something genuine beneath. She wouldn't ever be a guard, but she was finding her place. And Kale. Alara looked across the hall to where he stood with the other guards. As if sensing her attention, he turned, and their eyes met. The pull between them had only grown stronger, that chosen bond weaving tighter with each passing day. Tonight, after the petitioners had been heard and the hall emptied, she would tell him, would speak aloud what her wolf had been whispering for months. Mine. Not fated, but chosen. Not destiny, but decision. She smiled, and he smiled back, understanding passing between them without words. Matriarch. A young wolf approached, nervous but determined. The northern pack seeks audience. Then let them enter. The work was never done. There were always disputes to settle, alliances to forge, old grudges to heal. But Alara no longer felt overwhelmed by it. This was what she'd been born for. This was her purpose. She was Alara Moon, matriarch reborn. She was the balance, the justice, the heart of her people. And she was exactly where she belonged. Outside, storm clouds gathered on the horizon. Ash had reported strange movements in the Eastern Territories, whispers of something old and hungry stirring beneath the mountains. A blood moon was predicted within the month, a time when the barriers between worlds grew thin, when ancient evils could slip through. But that was a problem for tomorrow. Tonight, Alara had a people to lead, a guard to trust, and a love to claim. The moon shone above, eternal and bright, and under her light, all things were possible. And so Alara Moon's journey from discarded Omega to matriarch reborn shows us that sometimes our greatest pain becomes the key to our greatest power. She was rejected, cast out, left to die, but from those ashes, she rose stronger than anyone imagined. Her story reminds us that bindings, whether magical or self-imposed, cannot hold forever. That chosen family can be stronger than blood. That mercy is not weakness, and justice is not cruelty. What did you think of Alara's transformation? Could you feel the moment when everything changed for her? Have you ever had an experience where rejection became redirection? Let us know in the comments below. We love hearing your thoughts and stories. If you enjoyed this tale of werewolves, prophecy, and power reclaimed, please hit that like button and share this story with anyone who loves supernatural romance and fierce female leads. Your support means everything and helps us bring you more stories like this. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss when we post the next chapter. Because Alara's story is far from over. The blood moon is coming, ancient evils are stirring, and the matriarch will need all her power to face what comes next. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next chapter.